Welcome to the Daily Present with Johnny Ball. And today I'm talking about patience. Do you have any? You got any left? Why is patience so important, especially if you are a speaker or a content creator or a podcaster, or you're doing any kind of projects online where you're creating and putting out content? Why is patience so important to you? Why should it matter? Find out after the titles. See you in a moment. Okay, so welcome to the Daily Present, and I am talking today about patience. Patience is being so important to speakers and presenters. Why does it matter so much? Hey, look, before we get into this, let's first of all make sure if you're not following me on YouTube, please do check out my channel. You can find me as Present Influence. All you need to do is click the like button to one of my videos, please. Give us a subscribe, click that bell notification. You'll be notified every time I go live as well on YouTube, and you'll get to check out all the amazing podcast episodes and great guests I've got coming up. Like later today, I'm speaking to a lady called Aneri Bellamy, and we are talking about her work as a communications coach and how she is helping coaches to reach higher and fulfill their visions. It's going to be a great conversation. I've chatted with her before, and she's amazing. So join me for that if you can. As we get things started today, let's have a bit of a chat about patience. Hey, Elaine, great to see you here. Good morning to you too. So wonderful to have Elaine's a dear friend of mine back in my British Airways days, so it's great to see you. So we're talking about patience and why patience is so important as a content creator, but even as a business owner, it's super important. And, you know, I've been coaching people for a long time now. And one of the issues I often find coming up with people is the stick with it kind of thing, because it's rare that things happen as quickly as you want them to happen. So patience, it becomes super important in being able to stick with it and see the results through. Now, as a speaker or as a content creator, you may find that your work doesn't take off as quickly as you want it to. If you're doing YouTube videos or you're doing daily live videos like me or doing podcasting, you may find it takes a long time to build things up and create that audience, probably longer than you want. This is why people are so often looking for those secrets to speed things up. And you know, some of them are really good and can help you speed up and go faster and do more and achieve more in less time. But realistically, it nearly always takes longer than people think it's going to take. Now, a good example of this is something called pod fade. Now, pod fade is something that relates specifically to podcasters. And the fact is that the majority of podcasts that start don't ever make it to their 10th episode or beyond. This is known as pod fade. More specifically, is when a podcast just ends without any notification, without any warning, and without any perhaps noticeable reason for doing so, other than perhaps the person doing it maybe got a bit fed up with it, or perhaps there were some problems in getting it produced and getting it out there, and they've just stopped. So that's known as pod fade, and that's what most podcast creators actually experience. Very few are willing or prepared to stick with it and see it through to a level where they could actually be getting much bigger audiences. Let me give you a very specific example of this. I did my very first podcast back in 2008. Before people were really piling onto this wagon. Now, what I will share with you as well, like one of the first people I ever had lined up as a guest for myself, I already had my pod fade before I ever spoke to him, but his name is Lewis Howes. And if you know who he is, you'll know he has one of the top podcasts with the School of Greatness. Now, Lewis started his podcast and he stuck with it, which is why he has become one of the world's top podcasters. I didn't. I stopped my podcast. I maybe felt like I ran out of things to talk about, or that it wasn't really going to do much for me. And so I quit and dropped out. How different things might look for me if I had stuck with it, if I had had Lewis on as a guest back then and kept my podcasting going from all that time. I would have had a podcast then for over 10 years, and that would be amazing. But that isn't the case. So I started my new podcast in 2019, and it's taken time to build things up. And there have been times when I wanted to throw in the towel and think, not getting the listeners, I'm not getting the audience I want, not seeing the growth and development I want here. I'm getting the guests and having fun doing the show, but it's not getting results for me at all. And those are the times where you think, how do you keep going when it's like that? Well, what keeps me going is the fun of doing it, and also the recognition that you do have to be patient. It's been interesting to talk to other people in the same arena and find out that, probably about the 2-year mark for people in podcasting is where it takes to really get things to take off. It can be just as true with things like YouTube channels as well. Maybe not 2 years for that if you use the right strategies, but certainly it takes longer than most people want. If you have that sort of Kevin Costner Field of Dreams ideology that if you build it, if you make it, they will come, you're going to probably find yourself feeling very disappointed very soon. I don't recommend it, but you do need to have patience. But also, I think you need to have something a bit bigger than just what you want for yourself. Now, it certainly helps if you have fun doing what you're doing, and I certainly do, and that helps me a lot. But also to do it for something more than you. Do it because you want to help people. Do it for them. Do it for your audience, the people you want to serve. Because when you do that, it becomes about your duty to do that, your responsibility to your audience to help them to get the kinds of results that they want to get in whichever way you're going to do that. That can help you to stick with it. That can be a thing that pulls you through all the challenges that may come up. Whereas if you're just doing it for yourself, there's a good chance that you may want to throw in the towel. In the book Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, I hope I pronounced that correctly, he talks about having this need to serve something greater than yourself, that when we are doing it for others, when we're doing something for a greater purpose than just ourselves, it can help put us into that flow state and to get through those challenges and difficulties. In fact, that can be critical in being able to get us deeper into creativity, get us to more advanced and direct levels. So one of the reasons why people don't have the success they want in speaking, presenting, video making, content creating is simply that they don't stick with it long enough to learn. They maybe start and perhaps they don't feel they're good enough right at the start, but they don't recognize that it's a journey. It's a process of learning. My very first podcast ever was terrible. My very first YouTube video that I published was horrific. Thankfully, it's not online anymore. Although I almost wish I'd kept it because it's a really good example of what not to do on YouTube. But it got took down and I deleted it, mainly because I got so much negative feedback for doing it. But let's not get into that too much. I've moved on from it. I've learned from it and I've developed along the way. Do I think I'm fantastic now? No, I still think I've got a long way to go. But am I more adept than I was before? Absolutely, yes. Am I better at this now? Yes. If I can come onto a video and talk for 5 to 10 minutes every day, I'm definitely getting better at this, and you will too. So that's what I'm talking about. Stick with it even when you're not seeing the results. They will come so long as you keep growing and developing yourself as well. Keep talking about things that are interesting, that light you up. Have good energy when you come and talk about these things as well. That makes a really huge difference too. Most of all, have the patience to stick with this and see it through. People will sometimes ask me, how do you know when is the right time to throw in the towel? And my answer is this, that if you can create results, if it's possible to create the kind of results you want with the things that you're doing, it's possible for you too. So you should stick with it. If it's not, and other people can't do it, or you get a lot of feedback that maybe you should look at doing something else, then perhaps it is time to reconsider and not fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy of having invested so much time and energy into something. But that's one of the joys about being a speaker or a content creator, is that you can take all those skills that you've been developing already and translate them into something else, a new interest, a new passion that can be just as beneficial, in fact, even more productive and profitable for you than what you may have had before if that's not working out. So whatever area you've been specializing in, choose a new one. Become known for that instead, because if the first one's not working out for you, then you are not married to it. You don't have to get a divorce from that idea before you can move on. And you probably don't even have enough audience or authority in that area for it to be too attached to you. So move on, change it, try something else, try different things. Don't give up. Don't think that you failed. You've just found one thing that didn't work for you. So try something else that will, and you'll see the results will come and flow. It takes time. It does take time, and it takes a lot of stick-with-itness. Find communities that will help to encourage you as well. Get other people. If you're doing video creation, if you're doing public speaking, if you're doing podcasts, anything like that, find other people who are doing things like you do. For public speaking, there's things like Toastmasters groups, there's public speaking associations. Join them, connect with other speakers. For podcasters, there's so much networking stuff out there for podcasters. Get connected with other people who are doing it. Same with YouTube channels and everything like that. Connect with other people who are doing it. They'll show you, you'll find out you're not the only person who's having these difficulties, and you'll get encouragement to go along and some good critical feedback on the kinds of content you're putting out there if you're looking for it. And of course, get yourself a coach if you can. That's going to help you too. And your coach can be your cheerleader, but also can be that person who takes a look from the outside and say, hey, have you thought about working on this? Or perhaps this needs a bit of work, or oh, maybe you shouldn't do that. And here's why. So get some good coaching on what you're doing as well, preferably from someone who has been there and done it and has a good idea what they're doing as well. That's really going to help you out. So one thing I do want to make sure I get to before I wrap things up for today is that I listened to a really, really good podcast. It's a friend of mine, Francisco Mafus. I'm going to say his name wrong. Francisco Mafus. His podcast is called the Story Powers Podcast. Now, he did a show. His latest show is with a guy called James Lorraine. It's about, can engineers tell stories? And I find it really helpful. Like, one of the things, like, if you're connected with me on LinkedIn, you'll see that I have yesterday changed my LinkedIn profile description based on my little tagline, based upon having listened to that episode. Hopefully made it a bit more fun, a bit more engaging. It was a really good episode, a good story. It's a great podcast in general. I listen to it a lot, and Francisco is a really good guy. So check out the Story Powers Podcast. Take a listen to that. You will enjoy it, I promise you. And of course, make sure you stay tuned to me as well. But right now, it's time to get back to work. I'll see you again tomorrow.